So let's talk about retirement planning, but let's not think of it as some boring chore you'll get to eventually. No. Think of it as a game, a strategic challenge that you can absolutely win if you know the playbook. And today, we're going to walk you through the essential plays.
So, why is this so important right now? Well, here's the hard truth. On average, across the globe, state pensions, they only cover about 40% of what you used to earn. That's it. So, right out of the gate, there's a huge gap between what the government gives you and what you're actually going to need. And look, this isn't just some hot take. The numbers are clear. That social safety net, it's designed for a basic retirement, not necessarily a comfortable one. So if you want something more, well, that's on you. Taking personal action isn't just a nice idea, it's absolutely essential.
Okay, so if you can't just lean on the state, what about your own pension? This is where you have to know what kind of plan you actually have. See, most plans fall into one of two buckets, defined benefit or defined contribution. And trust me, the difference between them is everything.
First up, we've got the Defined Benefit Plan, or DB for short. People call this the gold standard of pensions. Why? Well, it's all about one word: certainty. With a DB plan, your employer promises you a specific, predictable income for life. The whole thing is based on a formula: your salary, how long you worked there. It's a guarantee. Now, on the other side of the coin, there's the Defined Contribution, or DC, plan. And this is the new reality for most of us. Here, there are zero promises about your final income. It all comes down to how much you and your employer put in, and, this is the big one, how well those investments do. The final number is a total question mark. And that brings us to the most important question of all: who's carrying the risk? In a DB plan, if the investments tank, it's the employer's problem. They're on the hook to make up the difference. The risk is all theirs. But in a DC plan, if the market crashes right before you retire, that risk is 100% yours. That one little difference changes the entire game. So it probably won't surprise you to hear that the gold standard is pretty much vanishing. Because for employers, these DB schemes are just incredibly expensive and risky. Think about it. They have to cover any losses, plus people are living way longer, which costs them more. So what happened? A lot of companies just froze their plans or closed them off completely to new hires. It's a financial gamble they're just not willing to take anymore. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the single most powerful force in all of retirement planning. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy. I'm talking about time. We're about to see just how powerful compound growth is and what a devastating financial hit you take by procrastinating, even for just a little while. So I want you to really think about this for a second. Imagine you put off saving for retirement. Not for a decade, not for 20 years, just 5 years. What's the real damage? A few $1,000s? Maybe a little more? Let's actually put a number on it. Okay, prepare yourself. The math here is just brutal. If you start saving at age 25, you could end up with a fund of around $900,000 by the time you're 65. But if you wait just 5 years, start at 30 with the exact same contributions, your final pot is slashed to around $525,000. It's the same amount of money going in, you just gave it less time to work its magic. Let that sink in. A $375,000 difference. That's the price tag for waiting just 5 years. See, you didn't just lose the contributions for those years, you lost decades of compound growth on those contributions. That's the hidden, incredible power of time working against you. Okay, I know that can feel a little overwhelming. We've talked about the why, the urgency, the risk, the crazy cost of delay. But now we're going to pivot to the how. And the good news is, this is not some big, unsolvable mystery. We can turn all that worry into a clear, actionable plan. This is the part of the playbook where you get back in control. So here it is, your framework. It's just 4 simple but really powerful steps. First, you've got to assess where you are right now. Take a hard, honest look at what you've got: savings, investments, pensions. Step 2 is actually kind of fun. You define what you want your retirement to look like. Get specific. Then, step 3 is where the rubber meets the road. You calculate the gap between the future you want and the money you have. And finally, step 4 is where you put it all together and build a real strategy to close that gap. See, this is how you stop worrying and start planning. So let's make this real. Here's a quick example of how you figure out that income gap. Let's say you've decided you need $50,000 a year to live the life you want. Okay. From that, you subtract what you expect to get from your company pension, say 30 grand, and what you'll get from the state, maybe 5 grand. What you're left with, that $15,000, that's your annual shortfall. That's the gap you need to fill every single year.
Now this is the part that changes everything. We take that annual gap and turn it into a real savings target. So to pull in 15 grand a year from your investments, how big of a pot do you need? Well, a good rule of thumb is about $250,000. And just like that, the vague, scary idea of saving for retirement becomes a clear, concrete mission. Build a $250,000 fund. Now you have a target. Now you have a goal.
Whew, we have covered a ton of ground. We've talked about the reality check of state pensions, the nitty-gritty of your own plan, and the absolutely brutal cost of waiting. We've laid out the playbook, the core intel you need. So now, the spotlight shifts back to you.
So let's just quickly recap the key takeaways here. Number 1, the state is providing a safety net, not a luxury cruise. A comfortable retirement is on you. 2, you absolutely have to know who carries the risk in your pension, you or your employer. 3, time is your single most valuable asset. The cost of delaying is just massive. And 4, a plan, a real plan, takes this big, scary problem and turns it into something you could actually solve.
And that really brings us to the only question that matters now. Look, this isn't just about listening and nodding along. You have the playbook. You know the core strategies to take control of your financial future. So the only question left is, what's your next move?